श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरुवे नमः. हरि ओम. Saddarshan book reading, composition by Bhagawan Raman Mahashi, commentary by Param Guruji, Swami, Tejomayananda ji of Chinmay Mission. Verse number 30. This precious jewel, the self, seems to have got lost in the veil of samsara. How do I retrieve it? Kupe yatha gadha jale tathanta nimajja buddhya shitaya nitantam pranam cha vacham cha niyamya chinvan vinde nijaham krutimula rupam. As one dives in a veil of deep waters, in the same way, having controlled the breath and speech with an extremely sharp intellect, having dived inside, inquiring, one gets to the root of one's ego. Here is an illustration to explain the process of meditation. One has lost a precious jewel in a deep well and wishes to retrieve it. Only one who can dive and swim is qualified to jump into the well. His body must be well toned and he must have perfect breath control. He should not talk during the entire operation. If it is not a clean dive, he may hurt himself or not reach deep enough. He has already been told the actual location of the jewel. He has thought well about how he would execute the job. His sole aim remains to get the jewel. So with single-pointed effort, he applies himself. His attention is focused on the search and all distractions are ignored. He may not succeed in the first dive. Without losing heart, he tries time and again till he finds the jewel. This self-shining jewel of the self is lost in the deep waters of thoughts. The individual who attempts to retrieve it must be well qualified with a pure, subtle and single-pointed intellect to enable him to dive deep within his or her personality. His or her intellect has already been sharpened and cleansed through selfless action and other spiritual practices like japa. All the grossness of worldly desires has been removed. He has the readiness to immerse totally and face whatever he may find on the way. Breath control pranayam helps the mind to attain a state of absorption. His speech representing all organs of perception and action are well disciplined. He does not dissipate his energies through sense indulgence. He has already heard about the knowledge of the self from the Guru and has reflected well on it. He now has the sole aim of reaching the truth, undistracted by anything within and without. He focuses his attention on the origin of the ego in order to know the self. He may not gain realization immediately. With patience and enthusiasm, he continues still his practice till he gains abundance. It is always easier to pinpoint the faults of others than ourselves. To look without is easier than looking within. To meditate on the self, which is the attributeless, formless, subtler than the subtle, is indeed a very difficult task. For one who has learned the knack, final beatitude is not far away. What are the types of thoughts one should entertain during contemplation? मौनेन मज्जन् मनसा स्वमूल चर्चैव सत्यात्मविचारणं स्यात् एषोऽहमेतन्न मम स्वरूपम् इति प्रमासत्यविचारणाङ्गम्. Diving in silence by the mind, inquiring about one's root, alone is true self-inquiry. This I am, and this is not my nature. These thoughts are a limb of true inquiry. Mauna or silence is observed at many levels. The grosser is at the level of speech. For beginners, this helps to prevent unnecessary wastage of energy due to what also said to be in mauna. A mind in deep contemplation is in mauna, and the highest is described as there from where the speech and mind return without attaining it is the true state of being. Yasmat vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha tad maunam aparokshanubhuti 107. Discussion, charcha, initially can be with others, but later it is within ourselves. The intellect satisfies questions of the mind and the help of knowledge acquired from the Guru. When a deeply contemplative mind discusses or investigates within about one's roots, it is true self-inquiry. With subtle discrimination, we distinguish that which we are from that which we are not. I am not the body, senses, or the mind. I am the witnessing consciousness. These thoughts should not be the repetition of learned words, but realization of a fact. For example, under the influence of alcohol, I thought I was a beggar. When I am sober, I realize I am not. An assertive flow of thoughts regarding my true nature removes the wrong notion and habits of the mind, which is used to living as a limited entity. With continuous practice, these thoughts lead us to an egoless state of being. What happens when the ego falls? गवेषणात् प्राप्यरुदन्तरं तत्पतेदहन्ता परिभुग्नशीर्षा अथाहमन्यत् स्फुरति प्रपृष्टं नाहं कृतिस्तत्परमेव पूर्णम्. Having reached within the heart by the search, the I notion, whose head is broken, falls. Then another I, which is the main one, shines forth. It is not the ego, but it is the supreme fullness alone. It is well known that Ravana had several heads. During the battle with Sri Rama, a new head appeared as soon as one fell. Finally, when the 10th head was sheared off, Ravana fell dead. A divine light emerged from his heart and merged with Sri Ram. The ego too hides behind many forms head in battle with it. When one form is destroyed, it immediately takes up a new one. By self-inquiry, when the last of its supports the 10th head is removed, the ego falls dead, never to rise again. Thereafter emerges Another I, the pure self, which is one with the Supreme alone. This self has no trace of the ego in it. Does the self shine only after the death of the ego? Where is it now? The self alone shines even now when we are in ignorance. Only our vision of it is covered. The sun shines even when clouds cover my vision of it. All of us in the world are bound by our duties. Does this bondage continue after realization? If not the bondage, do the duties continue? अहं कृतिं यो लसति ग्रसित्वा किं तस्य कार्यं परिशिष्टमस्ति किञ्चित् विजानाति सनात्मनोऽन्यात् तस्य स्थितिं भावयितुं क्षमः कः. What is there that remains to be done for him who shines having devoured the ego? He knows nothing other than the self, who is capable of conceiving his state of being. Duties, karya, are actions which have to be done. All actions, karma, are dependent on the doer, karta. In the case of one whose notion of doership itself has vanished, who is left to perform actions? What duties would such a sage have? Man has duties towards others depending upon his position in life. For example, a wife has certain duties towards her husband and vice versa, or a citizen to serve his country. Man also has a duty to himself to walk the path of good. All duties performed with a selfless attitude purify the mind. Such a mind is an aid to the achievement of the absolute truth. This achievement is the highest duty. The mere presence of a man of realization is a blessing to all. As long as there is something to be gained, praptavya, I will have to do something, kartavya, to gain it. If I have gained something, if I have gained everything possible and imaginable, there will no longer be the notion that I have to do something. Having gained the infinite, what more do I need to gain? All joys are included in the gain of the truth. All of us want to gain happiness. We superimpose joy onto an object other than ourselves and desire it. When I realize that there is nothing other than me, I am the very source of bliss. What would I desire and strive for? The Upanishad says, on knowing the self, desiring what and for whom would man trouble his body? आत्मानं चेद्विजानीयात् अयमस्मीति पूरुषः किमिच्छन् कस्य कामाय शरीरमनुसञ्ज्वरेत्. बृहदारण्यक उपनिषद 4.4.12. Then does the wise man sit idle all day? No, he may work even all day, but with a difference. We work in order to gain something. He works to share his inner joy and love. Our work starts from an inner discontent, his from a deep sense of fulfillment. If we do not work, we stand to lose materially or feel guilty. He does not lose anything. nor does he feel guilty if he does not work. So none can compel him to work or otherwise. Even the scriptures shy away from giving him any injunctions. This does not mean that a sage does anything wrong. He performs actions as per the need of the moment for the benefit of mankind. He has no insistence in action or inaction. There is freedom in action, not freedom from action. This is true freedom. Such a state is beyond the comprehension of an ignorant man. Some try to measure the sage with the yardstick of their limited intellect and either misunderstand or get confused. Some start superimposing their interpretation on the behavior of a sage and imagine that they understand his inner state of being. Truly, only a wise man can recognize and understand another wise man. One who is filled with the ambrosia of knowledge and has done what has to be done no longer has any duties. If one has duties, then one is not the knower of truth. ज्ञानामृतेन तृप्तस्य कृतकृत्यस्य योगिनः न चास्ति किञ्चित् कर्तव्यम् अस्ति चेत् न स तत्त्ववित्. Why does the mind not abide in the truth, even though told so by many? आह स्फुटं तत्त्वमसीति वेद तथाप्य सम्प्राप्य परात्मनिष्ठां भूयो विचारो मतिदुर्बलत्वं तत्सर्वदा स्वात्मतया हि भाति. The Veda has said clearly that thou art, even then, not having obtained abundance in the Supreme Self. To inquire again indicates the debility of the mind. That reality indeed shines always as one's own self. The Vedas, as expounded by the sages, clearly point out our identity with the Supreme. They do not say, thou shalt become that Supreme, or thou shalt attain that, or thou art like that. Even if we accept, ignore, believe, disbelieve, realize, or remain in ignorance, the Vedas conclude, thou art that. The truth does not depend on the opinion of one or many and is not subject to interpretation. A fit student would realize it when told once by the master. It is strange that no one told me specifically that I was the ego and the body mind intellect it identifies with, yet I remain doubtless in this knowledge. Through years of satsang and study of scriptures, we may be intellectually convinced that we are not the ego, yet we cannot abide in the truth. Surely it is due to the impurity, weakness, and grossness of the mind that such a simple, self evident fact does not strike home. A subtle mind can grasp the truth in an instant, and one with a true spirit of inquiry can abide in it. But when the mind is loaded with worldly desire for name and fame, lokeshana, desire for wealth, vitteshana, and desire for progeny, putreshana, true inquiry is not possible. Also, academic interest in the scriptures prevents inquiry. Some feel that they would have to take many more births to know that they are birthless. What then is the solution? The only way to make the mind fit is through inquiry. So, with the spirit of never say die, we inquire again and again. Parikshita, Arjun's grandson, and rare souls like him attained liberation by listening once. Shvetaketu of Upanishad fame was told 9 times. Indra had to stay with his guru for 108 years. Surely there is hope for us too. Some feel that they do not know the self. Others say they know it vaguely. Yet others are confident of knowing it well. Sri Raman Maharshi smiles at such talk. न वेद्म्यहं मां उत वेद्म्यहं माम् इति प्रवादो मौर्यस्य हास्यः दृग्दृश्यभेदात् किमयं द्विधात्मा स्वात्मैकतायां हि धियां न भेदाः स्वात्मैक I know not myself, or I know myself. Such expressions of man are a laughable matter. Is the self twofold by the division of the seer and the seen? In the knowledge of the oneness of oneself, indeed, there is no division. There can be knowledge or ignorance of an object, as in I know this book, I do not know Latin. Knowledge too may have degrees like I know English well, I know Sanskrit better, I know Hindi best, and I understand computers vaguely. Ignorance, of course, cannot have degrees. Knowledge can be of the nature of understanding, misunderstanding, or confusion. Like, I understand geography, I misunderstand the roof for a snake, and I am confused about my goal in life. The self is the knower, but never the known. One, therefore, cannot say that I know myself, I don't know myself, or I know myself vaguely, yet I am in a known fact to all. Knowledge of myself is self evident, so I cannot say that I do not know myself at all. Also, I cannot be confused that I am. Yet I may be confused about what I am. In the understanding I am, there is no duality of the knower and the known, knower I and the known I. Similarly, in the realization that I am the absolute existence, there is no duality of the knower and the known. The Kenopanishad 2.3 says, they know who say they know not, and they do not know who say they know. Avidnyatam vijanatam, vidnyatam avijanatam. Then, why do the scriptures talk of self knowledge? Presently, we have misunderstood the not self, namely the body, mind, and the intellect, to be the self. The known is misunderstood to be the knower. The scriptures are studied only to remove this false notion, not to create a self to be known. When the known is known as the known, different from the knower, self realization takes place. Having intellectually understood the nature of the self, what should one do? हृत्प्राप्य सद्धां निजस्वरूपे स्वभावसिद्धेनुपलभ्य निष्ठां मायाविलाससदसत्स्वरूपविरूपणानैकमुखप्रवादाः. Not having gained abidance in one's true nature, in the self-evident abode of truth by reaching one's heart, loud talks mainly as to whether the self is real or not, with form or without form, many or one, is all the play of Maya. With a desire for knowledge about life and its purpose, the seeker approaches a master. He is taught the knowledge of his own true nature and how he should abide in it. Having intellectually appreciated this clearly, he should refrain from unproductive arguments, scholastic pursuits of the scriptures, or erudite expositions of the truth. This is a waste of energy and may increase his pride and lead him away from the main purpose, abundance in the self. Adi Shankaracharya warns loud and fluent talks, efficiency in expounding the scriptures, erudition, these bring only material benefits but are incapable of liberating a man. वाग्वै खरी शब्द झरी शास्त्र व्याख्यान कौशलम वैदुष्यम विदुषाम तद्वत् भुक्तये न तु मुक्तये. Vivek Chudamani 58. One who is immersed in talk of whether the self is real or unreal, with or without form, many or one, gets so carried away that one does not realize that one's efforts are misdirected. One should be cautious, as the net of words is like a thick forest into which the mind gets lost. शब्दजालं महारण्यं चित्तभ्रमणकारणं. Vivek Chudamani 60. What is the point in talking knowledgeably about the different names, forms, and qualities of mangoes without ever tasting one? Similarly, one should withdraw from dry intellection and taste the nectar of self-abidance. We have heard a lot about yogic powers, siddhis, and are greatly attracted to them and people who possess them. Does a man of realization have any siddhis? सिद्धस्य वित्ते सत एव सिद्धिः स्वप्नोपमानाः खलु सिद्धयोन्याः. स्वप्नः प्रबुद्धस्य कथं नु सत्यः सति स्थितः किं पुनरेति मायाम्. The knowledge of the established truth itself is an accomplishment. Other accomplishments are indeed comparable to a dream. How can a dream be true to one who has woken up? One who abides in truth does not enter Maya again. A person dreams that he is a millionaire and is known as a generous donor to the cause of the poor. His words carry weight where it matters. On waking up, what is the value of the name, power, and wealth that he may have accomplished through sheer hard work in the dream? Can he re enter the dream and bring back even a single rupee? Those achievements did have value in the dream and gave him joy and gratification. But the greatest achievement of the dreamer is to wake up and realize that the dream world is unreal, a projection of the waking mind. This is possible only if the dreamer gets detached from his dream accomplishments and inquires into who he really is. The Yoga Sutra 4.1 says yogic powers siddhis are inherent from birth due to specific herbs, from the power of mantra, through penance, or by meditations. Janma Aushadhi Mantra Tapa Samadhija Siddhayah. Such powers come after long years of single pointed and sincere practice. This is true even for worldly accomplishments. Modern science can now achieve through yantra, machines or instruments, some of the things that the yogi achieved through mantra and tantra shakti. For example, to counteract an Agni Astra, a fire weapon, a Vayu Astra, wind weapon, was sent by mantra shakti. Modern warfare uses missiles and anti-missiles, achieving the same effect at an exorbitant cost to all. Yogic siddhis are truly extraordinary and hold a fascination for most. One is greatly impressed by another's ability to read our mind, look into our past or future, walk on water, levitate, fly in the air, appear simultaneously at two places, disappear into thin air, produce objects from nowhere, heal others by mere touch, etc., and so on. When such powers are sought for fame and name in this world, they attain the status of stunts. The man in the circus too gets applauded for tight rope walking. When these powers are used for gaining control over others, they become dangerous and destructive for all. These powers achieved through practice are seen at times to disappear with lack of practice, leaving the person more miserable. The root cause of sorrow in man is not the lack of worldly achievements but ignorance of one's own true nature, which gives rise to a feeling of helplessness, emptiness, and finitude. By gaining powers, this basic human problem remains unresolved. The world worships people who have powers, but such people themselves are unhappy within. This is seen in the lives of many famous men in all walks of life. The greatest achievement of life, therefore, remains the realization of truth. Yogic powers may come to a man of realization as a result of his spiritual practices or by the grace of the Lord. He uses them neither for fame nor for power over others. For him, they are dreamlike and enjoy the same degree of reality as the rest of the world. He may even be totally unaware that he has powers, But one does observe extraordinary things happening near these great souls. They may at times display these powers in order to increase the faith of a devotee or to give boost to a seeker in his practice or to bless the world at large. In them, such powers are seen to enhance the beauty of the crest jewel of self realization. For how long does one need to inquire? Is there a time limit or a specific period for which one should inquire each day? Bhagawan answers, Soham vicharo puratma bhave sahayakari paramarganasya स्वात्मैकसिद्धौ स पुनर्निरर्थो यथा नरत्व प्रमितिर्नरस्य. In the state of thinking that the body is the self, the contemplation of He am I is helpful to the search of the Supreme. In the accomplishment of the oneness of oneself, that He am I, contemplation is again without purpose. Just as to a man, the knowledge of his manhood is of no help. A pilgrim, before starting his journey, asks how long he would have to walk to reach the distant temple. After a few steps, he again wants to know the distance covered. For such person, the journey becomes tedious and he does not enjoy the beauty on the way. In the case of self-inquiry, the seeker and sought are not separated by time and space, but through a misunderstanding. If one asks, how long would it take to clear the misunderstanding? The answer would be, as long as you wish to remain in it. How long would it take the dreamer to meet the waker? As soon as he wakes up, he meets the waker. The thought, the Supreme am I, helps to clear the wrong notion that I am the body, and should be practiced till the I notion in the body remains. A man somehow has forgotten his humanness. He is told, he, man, thou art. He tries to establish himself in the knowledge, he, man, am I. Having ascertained his humanness, he need not meditate daily, I am a man. The practice has served its purpose. This practice may sound funny for us who are so well established in our human mood. Similarly, the meditation of the ignorant, He, Supreme am I, could be looked on as laughable by the one established in Godhood. Yet he recommends the practice to get us out of our strongly entrenched notion of individuality. He himself is above such practice. Is reality the nature of duality, Dvaita, non-duality, Advaita, or both Dvaita, Advaita? Dvaitam vichare paramartha bodhe tvadvaitamityeshana sadhuvadaha गवेषणात् प्राग् दशमे विनष्टे पश्चाच्च लब्धे दशमत्वमेकम्. To say that there is duality during the inquiry but non-duality in the knowledge of the Supreme is not right. The 10th man's 10thness is one and the same when he is lost before the search and when he is found later. Many different interpretations of the Vedas, as well as the established schools of thoughts, are available. To some seekers, all interpretations seem correct, and so they get confused as to what the Vedas actually mean to say. The Dvaitins dualists say that the individual and the supreme can never be one. The two may have a part whole relationship, but the finite can never be the infinite. The Advaitins, not dualists, say that there is no duality whatsoever between the individual and the supreme. The duality, if experienced, is an appearance and therefore unreal. The Dvaitadvaitins, dual non-dualists, say that in the state of ignorance there is duality of the seeker, sought, or part, whole. On realization of one's true nature, the duality ends. To them, the other two views are only partially right, and the reality is both dual and non dual. This sounds logical to us. It matches with our present experience of being different from the Lord and our belief that we could realize Him as our own self later. Such a thought, however, is fallacious. This fallacy is illustrated through the well known story of the tenth man. 10 fools went on a pilgrimage. On crossing a river, the leader decided to count and see if all were present. He could count only 9 and was worried that the 10th man must have somehow drowned in the river. Not realizing that he himself was the 10th man, there was a frantic search for him. When told by a passerby, "You are the 10th man," there was the realization that the seeker is the sought. Even when the leader was searching for the 10th man, the lost man was not someone apart from him. There was non duality between the seeker and the sought even before realization. When the illusion of duality ended, the truth was realized. As in the story, if we realize that I am what I look for in others, all my running around would end. I am the happiness that I superimpose on others. When this self imposed rift between the seeker and the sought is bridged, I gain self abidance. The nature of liberation expounded by the scriptures is now explained. करोमि कर्मेति नरोऽभिजानन् बाध्यो भवेत् कर्मफलं च भोक्तुं विचारधूतारुधिकर्तृता चेत् कर्मत्रयं नश्यति सैव मुक्तिः. When man thinks I do work, he becomes bound to enjoy the fruits of action also. If the doership is washed away by inquiry, the results of the 3 types of actions perish. That alone is liberation. Liberation, as wrongly understood by many, is to do what one wishes, unrestricted by the laws of state, society, or family. This is not freedom, but licentiousness. Such a person is totally a slave of his own mind and dances to the tune of his own whims and fancies. Actions by themselves do not bind. It is the sense of doership that we assume in an action that binds. Every action is bound to give results. The doer then becomes the enjoyer of the fruits of action. He cannot escape from the results. They come to Him in their own time, in their own way, not as we may wish them to be. We get what we deserve, not what we desire. However unacceptable this may seem to be, the matter does not end there. Having enjoyed or suffered the results, we form vasanas and impressions. These inherent tendencies induce fresh desires, which prompt actions which give further results. This chain of doership, enjoyership, doership is bondage. If by inquiry I wash away the notion of doership, I could break the chain. The inert body and mind functions in the presence of the self, which illumines actions. Neither the body, mind, nor the self have the notion of doership or enjoyership. It is the ego that rises through the inexplicable combination of the two that assumes these notions upon itself. The blades of the fan rotate in the presence of electricity. If electricity assumed the movements of the blade on itself, it would get exhausted rotating. The ego has been rotating without rest in the wheel of action karma chakra, constituted of birth and death for a long time, and naturally feels strained and exhausted. To end the doership by realizing I am a non doer, a karta, and a non enjoyer, a bhokta, is to liberate oneself from the cycle of birth and death. Actions are of three categories: Sanchit karma, the total capital of deposited actions that are collected over many lifetimes. We have a very large balance of them. Prarabdha karma, those actions from the Sanchit that have started giving results. They come to us as circumstances in the present, which is destiny. Agami karma, actions we do in the present which will give results in the future. All the above types of actions depend on the doer. I, the self, is the support of all actions. One who is free from the notion of doership remains unaffected by the three types of actions and their results. This is true liberation. Arjuna wanted to free himself from the bondage of actions by escaping from them. Sri Krishna advised him against that and told him to know himself as the non doer in all actions. Thereby he would remain unaffected even whilst performing his duties. Gurudev Swami Tejomayananda says that liberation is not freedom from action but freedom in action. Sri Raman Mahashi deals with the question of liberation in his own unique style of inquiry. बद्धत्वभावे सति मोक्षचिन्ता बन्धस्तु कस्येति विचारणेन सिद्धे स्वयं स्वात्मनि नित्यमुक्ते क्व बन्धचिन्ता क्व च मोक्षचिन्ता. When there is the sense of bondage, anxiety for liberation is there. By the inquiry for whom is the bondage? One's own self, the ever free, is itself established. Then, where is the thought of bondage and where is the concern for liberation? Liberation is understood by many as a state one attains after severe austerity and long years of meditation. Thereafter, one has no relations with anyone in the world. So the worldly samsari should not seek liberation. This misunderstanding keeps them away from seeking liberation. One desire one desires freedom from bondage. So all those who feel bound desire liberation. Bondage is of the nature of sorrow and liberation is happiness. None can claim that they have no sorrows and that they do not desire happiness. Hence, we are all bound and we all desire liberation. Liberation. We all desire liberation. Let us ask, who is bound, who feels miserable, who wants happiness? The answer is I. Then we ask, who am I? When one goes to the root of the I thought or ego, we realize the pure self which is ever free. The infinite knows no limitations. Such being by nature, where is the question of bondage or liberation? Presently, our bondage seems real. Therefore, sincere efforts should be put forth for liberation. On gaining liberation, one realizes that one was never bound. Both bondage and liberation are the notions of the mind. Amrutabindu Upanishad 2 declares, mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation. Man eva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoho. If I feel I am bound, then I am bound. If I feel I am free, then I am free. How simple it is to liberate oneself, yet how difficult it seems to us. This is because we have been living as the finite self, the ego, for innumerable lifetimes. We are therefore not ready to accept that we are free even now. Bondage seems real and liberation something far away to be achieved after long years of struggle. With true inquiry, we could know we are ever liberated here and now. The text concludes with an elaboration of the nature of liberation, with reference to the other known forms of it. रूपिण्यरूपिण्युभयात्मिका च मुक्तिस्त्रिरूपेति विदो वदन्ति इदं त्रयं या विविनक्त्यहन्धीस्तस्याः प्रणाशः परमार्थमुक्तिः. The knowers say that liberation is of three forms, with form, without form, and of the nature of both. The destruction of that I notion which analyzes these three is supreme liberation. Different schools of thought hold different views about the nature of liberation. Some say that since bondage is experienced now when we are embodied, liberation is meaningful only if achieved while living Jivan Mukti. They believe that none would strive for liberation if it could be achieved only after death. For example, it is meaningless to want release from the jail when one is dead. Those who believe in liberation without form say that as long as there is a body and an ego which identifies with the body, there is no question of liberation. Even if the identification is of empirical value, one would suffer the pains and changes of the body. Hence, true liberation is only possible when the body falls videha mukti. Yet others say that liberation is attained while living and continues after the body falls. Instead of trying to find out who is right, we ask who analyzes these three ideas. It is the ego that analyzes the merit or demerit of each thought. Who am I? Inquiring thus, the ego dies. The death of the ego is supreme liberation. Liberation has nothing to do with the body. It is the sense of limitation felt due to identification with the body that binds us. So, whether the body remains or not, the liberated soul is unaffected. For example, space is unaffected with or without the pot in it. It is ever liberated. With this verse, the exposition on Saddarshan ends. The following two verses are written by Sri Vasishtha Muni. Saddarshanam dravidavang nibaddham maharshina Shri Ramanena shuddham प्रबन्धमुत्कृष्टममर्त्यवाण्यां मनोद्यवासिष्ठमुनिर्व्यतानीत. Vasishtha Muni composed this Saddarshan in the language of the immortals, Sanskrit, having translated the pure and superb composition written by Sri Ramana Mahashi in the Dravid language Tamil. As mentioned in the introduction, the original text was written by Sri Raman Maharshi in his mother tongue, Tamil. Saddarshan, or the vision of truth, gives us the true vision of oneself and the world. It is not a collection of ideas from different books, but springs from the inner experience of the great seer. There is therefore a purity and freshness of thought in each verse. It elaborates the method of direct inquiry into one's root without any scope for argumentation. Sri Vasishtha Muni has translated the text in Sanskrit for the benefit of all seekers. Sattattvasaram saralam dadana mumukshulokaya mudam dadana amanusha Shri Ramaniyavani mayupavittir munivag vibhati. The words of the Muni shine like a wall, reflecting the rays of the divine utterances of Sri Ramana, conveying the essence of the truth in simple form and giving joy to the seekers of liberation. Sri Raman Maharshi is like the sun that shines in his own glory of self-realization above all mortals. His words are like the rays giving us the vision of truth. Yet, all may not be able to benefit as they do not have the capacity to reflect. Sri Vasishtha Muni's composition in Sanskrit is like a reflecting that surface that shines with an extra glow and benefits all seekers of liberation. We invoke the blessings of Sri Ramana Maharshi to inspire us on the path of inquiry and guide us in gaining the vision of truth. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai.